Welcome all to our community call here for September 27th, 2022. Great to see some new faces and lots of familiar faces in the room today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join the Retreat Center collaboration for this community conversation. And I'm so grateful that we have a guest facilitator with us today as well, Leticia Nieto. So I'll be looking forward to introducing her in just a couple moments. For folks who haven't been on community calls before, I can just give a little overview of what we usually do here. These are opportunities for retreat center leaders across the United States and Canada to connect with each other and look at topics that are important to all of us. And those topics shift quite a bit. So we talk about a lot of different things here. And there's always an invitation for you to communicate to me if there are topics that we haven't covered that are important to you, things that you would like to know about, and or hear how the group, how your peers are responding to something. Let me know what those questions are, and I'm happy to look at our upcoming schedule and make sure that those get addressed in future conversations. Part of our community call scheduling, most recently, the past 6 to 8 months, we've been able to utilize many of the different resources that we have through the Racial Healing Initiative, one of our main programs, to offer racial healing workshops as part of our community calls. So these are kind of special topics, often with special presenters, either from the RHI team or from guests, to look at kind of the growing edge at retreat centers as we're encountering it and learning about it together. So this is a community process. And we get to take those resources back out to our centers or to the communities that we work with and continue to grow together. So this is one of those calls. Sometimes we've had those calls extend the time a little bit to 2 hours, but today we've blocked off 90 minutes. So I'm hoping that that fits with what's on your calendars. And I've got another, okay, thank you. Someone in the waiting room there. So I'm glad that you've made it in for this call today. My name is Ben Scott Brandt. I'm the program director for the Retreat Center collaboration. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm based in the Great Lakes region on Anishinaabe land, land of the Ottawa, the Ojibwa, and the Potawatomi peoples, the people of the Three Fires, the Anishinaabe peoples, here in West Michigan, real close to Lake Michigan. Lake Michigan is one of my sacred places that I go to when I can't get to a retreat center, but we have a lot of retreat centers around here as well. And part of how I got introduced to retreat centers was through my work here in Michigan. I'm looking forward to some times when I can tour all of Turtle Island to visit a lot more of your centers. There's so many of you that I've never met in person. I look forward to the opportunity to do that. Our topic today is Beyond Inclusion, Developmental Strategy to Liberate Everyone. And our presenter today is Leticia Nieto, Dr. Leticia Nieto, who is an educator, a coach, a facilitator, a dance movement theater. There's some other movement pieces of this as well, which I was excited to be reading about. And I met Leticia through a panel that we hosted last year that was a global anti-racist panel looking at how that work is happening across the world, not just in the US. So welcome, Leticia. I'm so glad you can be here. I'm really looking forward to what you have to share. And I look forward to continuing this conversation beyond this meeting as well with this wonderful group of peers.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So you can hear me okay, everybody? I'm living in a new place and there are all kinds of sounds, foghorns and things that I'm not yet used to. So let me know if anything gets weird, if the air conditioner kicks in or something. So I am in Olympia, Washington, in Coast Salish land, and there's an approach that I've brought to the question of difficulty around difference starting in about 1981. The story is that I went to a training with other counselors from the community college that I was working at, and on our way back from the training, everybody was complaining. All 11 counselors were complaining about how terrible the training was. And I was the youngest one. So I became appointed to go talk to the dean and carry their complaints about how terrible the training was. And you can imagine what happened, right? That the dean said, very well, you are doing the training next year. So I kind of backed into that question. I'm a developmental psychologist. My focus is on adult development and social change. And my approach comes from that psychological and developmental perspective. I'm also a psychodramatist. I was born and raised in Mexico, and I bring all of that to you today. So the first thing we're going to do is a song. And for that, if you would be willing to, those of you who can do that, turn your cameras on and your microphones off. So cameras on and microphones off. And then, except for if we could have one person who wants to sing with me, because Zoom only allows 2 voices. So is there anyone who wants to sing today at this hour for some of you? Okay, Marta. So Marta, if you could unmute, and here are the lyrics of the song. What we're going to do is I'll sing a line, and then Marta, you sing the same line, and everybody will sing when you sing. Or they might just move their mouth, or they might not sing, or it doesn't matter. All right. You want to give me a range? Where do you like to sing? Okay, great. What if we all believed we belong
What if we all believed we belong?
to each other? We belong.
To each other we belong.
What if we all believed we belong
What if we all believed we belong?
to each other? We belong.
To each other we belong.
I will stand with you.
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 Will you stand with me too?
Will you stand with me too?
Thank you, Marta. That is a Rebecca Goldsmith song. So I'm going to run through it one more time, string it all together, and maybe just sing along with me if you can. It's probably still there because we just did it. So the first part repeats 2 times, and then the second part goes 3 times, and then 1 line at the end. What if we all believed we belong to each other? We belong again. What if we all believed we belong to each other? We belong. I will stand with you. I will stand with you. I will stand with you. Will you stand with me too? All right. So that's the place we start. For me, singing with other people, even on Zoom, is a great practice in remembering the fact that we are part of a much larger organism, and that we are much more interdependent and interwoven than we are distinct. And yet, our distinctness is an important, or maybe the most important, one of the most important things that makes the whole healthy. So while we are all part of a larger something, we are here to live our own path and experience our own experiences and come to consciousness about our own location. Let me offer a quote from Clarissa Pinkola Estes, and I'm going to put it in the chat. There's 2 parts, and I'll ask somebody to read aloud each part. So let's do this much. Is anybody willing to read this piece aloud? It starts with "You are right in your assessment." Yeah, Maureen? I saw Maureen first. Thank you. Kathy, would you read the second one? All right. So Maureen, go for it.
So it'll be in the chat, Leticia?
It is, yeah. It's just a little bit above right now. You might have to scroll
Yeah,
up a little
move
bit.
it down, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It starts with "You are right in your assessments."
You are right in your assessments. The luster and hubris some have aspired to while endorsing acts too heinous against children, elders, everyday people, the poor, the unguarded, the helpless, is breathtaking. Yet I urge you, ask you, gentle you, to please not spend your spirit dry by bewailing these difficult times.
Thank you, Maureen. And then Kathy, will you close it out with the second part?
Especially, do not lose hope. Most particularly because the fact is we were made for these times. Yes, for years we have been learning, practicing, been in training for, and just waiting to meet on this exact plane of engagement. I cannot tell you often enough that we are definitely the leaders we've been waiting for, and that we have been raised since childhood for this time precisely.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Maureen. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a brief breakout room for you to share which line from this quote that's in two parts, which line from these quotes most lands with you, most activates you, most connects for you. So I know it's hard because you want to pick more than one, but choose one line that when you heard it, you were like, yes, that's what it is. Or, wow, have you been watching me? You know what? If you feel called out, or if you feel centered, or if you feel known by some element here, you're going to identify that. And Ben, would you be willing to make us just random breakout rooms with 2 or maximum 3 in each room?
People in each, yep, I can do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And then we'll do about 2 minutes per person, so maybe 6 minutes. Just share the line and where it takes you.
All right, folks, here we go.
And Ben, does your breakout room have a 1 minute or 30-second closing?
I believe it has a 30-second.
Perfect. So let's take a look and make sure everybody has someone to talk to. Looks like a lot of 3. So if somebody just came in, I think maybe.
Assign them to room 6.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, and I'll just send a note in case anybody didn't quite get my direction. Please share the line that reached you. Here we go.
Lauren is the director of Commonweal. Leticia, did he introduce himself?
Yeah. All right, welcome everybody. So in this Zoom land, I usually like to ask who got cut off so that you can complete your thought. So it's kind of like Zoom poetry, I call it. So what happens is if you were either cut off actually rudely by the Zoom vortex, or you didn't actually get to say something, this is when you say it, and don't give any context. So it's basically for those you were in a room with. Complete your thought or add your last line, and we'll all just enjoy the poetry that emerges, if you're willing. So if you were cut off, especially. No, you got it. You had a whole minute, so you were able to close it all up?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to start shortening that so that we still have some poetry. We'll do harvest instead. So what's something that maybe a handful of you would be willing to say, given that some folks joined us after this exercise, and so for them to benefit from the work you just did, share a bit, and I'm going to replace the quotes in the chat. But open your mic and share a little bit of what you shared in your space. Anybody willing? Open your mic and just go for it. Okay, the quotes are back in the chat.
Well, I'll share that the line that really gave me some comfort was the line about don't spend your precious energy. How did it go? Don't spend your spirit dry by bewailing these times, because it is so easy to be overwhelmed or frustrated or despairing with all of the work that needs to be done. And for me, it's easy to be caught up in that, and helpful to pause that, because that just kind of, it can perpetuate the chaos if we get emotionally over wrapped up in things. And just knowing that just is spending energy in an unhelpful sort of way. That line really was helpful for me.
Oh, thank you, Claire. Yeah, I was thinking about how valuable wailing is and how not valuable bewailing is. Not a word we use a lot, but to dwell and keep in the kind of the sorrow and the dry making part of that. It isn't for us. Don't worry, it'll get taken care of. There will be folks engaged in that task, but it is not for us. Ours is to witness, to bear up with stamina and presence, to bring the maximum surface area for that sorrow, and to not lose hope, right? And so I feel like the second part of the quote a little bit answers the first part of the quote, in that it tells us what to do instead. But let's hear if there are any other lines from either quote that landed for someone. And I'll just remind you, we only have 90 minutes, so to the extent that you're willing, bring it forward so we can keep going with other things. Holly, was that you maybe going to say something?
I want to tie together two things. One is one of the lines where we were raised since childhood for this time precisely. And then what I found out at the very end was that Paul and Kirsten are from Michigan and Indiana, near where my mother was born and where I have relatives. So this idea of been raised since childhood and our connection around our ancestry or around our family, I don't know, that just touches me, just knowing that, so it's that human connection to our ancestry and our childhood that I wanted to add.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, there's a song, it's part of the tradition of Nuevo Canto Nuevo or Nueva Canción, that's called Coincidir, to coincide. I sent it to Victoria recently, and it's a song that says, tantos siglos, tantos mundos, tanto espacio, y coincidir. So many centuries, so many worlds, so much space, and here we are coinciding in time and place, in purpose and project. It's a pretty amazing thing. And then as we begin to unpack, unravel, explore our autobiographies and our ancestral stories, so much is beyond belief at a certain level, right? Like, what? I can't believe. And so my response is believe. Believe it. Yes, there is tremendous potency in the pattern of how it is we've come together. And the more you get to know someone, often the more amazing and awe-inspiring it is to realize that our mothers were both middle children, or our grandfather spent time in this particular location, same as your grandfather. So when we find these echoes, these patterns, we begin to connect to that which is transcendent. And I think that the concept of sanctuary, retreat, it plays a part, a place of rest, of depth, is profoundly connected to this idea that who comes together to renew, who comes together to to find common purpose or to realign with soul is never an accident, right? We are never in community by accident. There's a definition. I used to teach at St. Martin's University, where there's a monastery, and I remember one of the monks told me early on, there's two things to know about community. There's no accident of who's there, and the second one is there's got to be somebody there that you can't stand. This is from the voice of a monk. There's got to be somebody there you can't stand. If those two criteria are met, then you know it's right. Then you know you're in community. Community is not about a collection of people in perfect alignment and harmony. Loretta J. Ross says that a group of people moving together in the same direction with the same idea is a cult. But a group of people moving together with different ideas is a movement. So what we're working to create in these spaces, including this one today, is not to come to some kind of perfect alignment or perfect harmony. Dissonance is great. What we want is to recognize the pattern and honor it, even as we experience the gorgeous tango of our tensions. So to that, let me ask you this question. Oh wait, are there any other lines? Because I riffed for a bit there and I forgot. Any other elements of the quote that you want to bring forward? Because that was 2, 3 is kind of a nice number. Let's hear one more. Anyone thinking of one that you want to bring out? Mary.
It's the combo. I'm at one end of the age spectrum, and my partner Jean is at the other end. And I'm saying, do not lose hope, pulling it with all my heart, begging for that. And she says, well, we're the leaders you've been waiting for. It was like a call and response. And I think that's true, that in the other, we see what it is that where hope comes from.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't have to do all of this in our own body. Right? The call, the invitation that we have here is not an invitation to be heroic and perfect. I mean, I think we are heroic kind of just on the basis of the fact that we respond to the call at all, but not like uppercase heroic, not martyred. What we are invited to is to collectively round out to something that can bear up and can move forward. So thank you for that. Okay, awesome. So let me ask you this next question, which is, what do you need to be present here? What do you need to be present here? And this is about disability justice. So if you connect to people who are engaged very directly in countering ableism and creating access for persons with disabilities, the scholarship that's happening in those circles is around a very intersectional, or intersectionally informed orientation to disability justice, which is that there's a root, if you will, that lens can see that says, in a way, all dehumanization is ableism. In a way, all forms of dehumanization are attempts to reduce or compress, to create less access for more people. And so the invitation is, what do you need to be present that may not be here? Some of us are really Zoom tired. I'm not, for whatever reason. I really like seeing the close-ups. I think it has to do with my vision. If I'm in a large room, I can't see well enough, even with my glasses, to actually get the close-ups of the faces. And so for me, Zoom is an accommodation. It gives me access to your face in a way that I couldn't have if we were all together, unless I got real close. But there may be other things you need that you don't get by being on Zoom, or that are up with your body, with your environment. So I'd like you to just think about, what do I need to be fully present to know what I know, to feel what I feel, and to learn what I came here to learn, or to work with what I came here to work with. And we're going to do, again, a breakout room. This time, I think we'll go ahead and do a choosing one where you get to, I'm doing it, let's see. How many rooms did we have last time? 8, so I'm going to make 10 rooms. I'm creating them now and opening them. So if you can see, it's fine. You'll need to ignore the timer because the timer will not be true. So as you, if you click breakout rooms at the bottom, do y'all see it? Yeah. It will show you a list of everybody's name, and below that, a list of 10 rooms. And this is what we're going to do. As you think about this question, what do I need to be fully present? Identify someone here you want to share that with. And you may know them or you may not know them. And then you will open your mic and say, my name is, so Kathy, for example, maybe you would start us, and Kathy will say, I'm Kathy, and you'll say a name of someone, please join me in room 1. That person will out loud say yes or no. Right? It's going to get a little intense.
Leticia, I think that I'm not seeing names, I'm seeing just rooms.
Oh, okay, that's fine. You don't worry about it. So you can see the rooms, but you can see, maybe you can see the names on the screen, or you might need to open the participants list. Thank you. So you'll identify. So this is right now. Just your work is to identify who you might want to talk to, and you may also be having the experience of, I don't really care who I talk to, or you may be feeling like I would talk to anybody, at all. So guess what? You get any of those choices. If there's somebody you want to talk to, you get to invite them in a room with you to talk. If you don't care, then you can just jump into a room with that. You have to jump to a room that's populated though, because I don't want you in a room by yourself. And if you don't want to talk to anybody about this, you just won't go and you'll stay here in the big room and hang out. How do you like that? So choice, this is my commercial, choice is the smallest unit of liberation. So when we're not warmed up to choosing, we're not doing liberation. Don't wait to be chosen, choose. Okay, ready? So I don't know why, Kathy, I thought you were ready to go, but are you ready to go? Do you have a person in mind?
I'm one of those happy to connect to anyone.
Okay. Okay.
Probably not from my organization.
Okay. Let me find somebody who has an idea of somebody they want to talk to. And Brian, I think you are. So
yes.
Brian, who do you want to talk to?
Sarah Hennessy, if she's available.
Sarah Hennessy, would you go there? All right. So you both click
in room 1.
Yeah. So you both click 1 if you can see it. Do you see it?
Yes.
You both click 1. And Sarah, we can also help you by sending you into room 1. Great. So now you see how this goes. All right, let's see if we can do it a little faster. Who else is willing to choose? All right, Maureen, who do you want?
I'd love to talk to Rebecca if she'll talk to me.
Rebecca, that's a yes. Okay, both of you to room 2. Okay, Maureen to room 2. All right. You see the invites? Go ahead and accept them, and you'll be in room 2. Who's next?
I have an inkling to talk to Ben.
All right. So, Ben, you willing to join Rachel in room 3?
Sure.
Okay,
great. Cool. All right. Ben, you can jump into room.
Hello, everyone.
So now we're back in the recording mode, and welcome everybody back. Some of you got more time than others because of the nature of that exercise. And so an invitation to finish your thoughts if you were interrupted. And maybe when you're not speaking, you might want to close your mic to reduce sound in the space. So anybody willing to complete your thought if you had a thought to complete? Okay. In that case, go ahead.
I'll just offer briefly that it was a response in our conversation about, to me, that's part of being in community.
Great, thank you. There's something just really gorgeous about not having any context and hearing a fragment, because it'll land with us in a different way. It might feel like that's amazingly connected to what we were talking about. Yeah. Anyone else willing to offer a fragment that maybe you didn't get in with your group? Okay, if not, let's harvest a bit. Oh yeah, Maureen.
Just a phrase that I learned from my spiritual director recently that happened with myself when we were together is we had so many connections in our time together, but sacred convergence. Isn't that a nice name?
Beautiful.
I just love that. It felt like sacred convergence.
Sacred convergence. Glorious. Love that. Okay. So anyone want to say what you need? And the idea is anytime you name what you need, you are liberating the space because you are making it possible for someone else to say, oh, I need that too. And then we start to move into, wait, that's our right. That's our birthright. Right? I need to not be in fluorescent lights. And it happens perhaps, that you are. Anytime I hear anything that's also part of my needs, it just resonates. So let's hear it. What's something you need to be able to get the most out of our next little while? Maybe you
Also,
need.
I was sharing that I enjoy the support from my director in being here. So this time is where I can focus and be in community with everyone else.
To actually have your director open the space for you, create the support, endorse, encourage, that is a real thing. And yes, thank you, Ken, for offering that thumbs up. Always please use your reactions freely to send resonance to the speaker. Yeah.
Are you still wanting to rearrange something?
Yes, Benjamin, go for it.
But anything I could do to help?
Oh.
Yeah, you can help with the topics.
I don't know, Benjamin, were you wanting to talk with us?
The other thing I was thinking is there's a sucker.
No, there was a note from Benjamin earlier that that they are calling from a second job without a mic, and I think now they have a mic and they might not realize it. So Ben, are you willing to? Yeah, thanks. And then Benjamin, please, I'm gonna write a note. Let us know if you were wanting to speak. We heard your mic for a moment. Okay. Oh, nope, he left the meeting. Oh, that's too bad. Okay. All right. I'm a little bit upset about that. Not very, but I'm sad. He might have clicked out of the meeting instead of just closing his mic. Or maybe he'll come back. That's what I'm going to imagine. All right. Anybody else want to offer? I think maybe there was another voice besides Benjamin's. Was it Mel? Was it you? No? Okay. All right. Well, if you're willing, put it in the chat what it is you need to be present here. And then I'm going to move into kind of the official content for our time, which is to share a model for thinking about social justice and the development of skillful approaches to incidents where you want to make a difference. So I'd like you to just bring to mind an apple. Bring to mind an apple. Maybe you even have one around. But if you look at an apple, I'm going to use it to describe 3 levels or 3 dimensions at which we could work. And I started with a 7-level thing, but I got it down to 3, which is a lot more manageable. So in the core of the apple are seeds. And so if you let yourself imagine what the potentiality is for those seeds and let your mind go all the way from seed to orchard. And just kind of imagine that when you're holding an apple, inside that you can connect to the possibility of a full orchard. I call that layer power. Power. So power is the core of our existence, the core of ourselves, the core of our collective selves, the core of our cultural legacies, in some ways the core of the planet, the core of the universe. So the most essential, most true aspect that has the possibility for tremendous generativity. So the seeds. And maybe in the next week or so, you can be sure to eat an apple or commune with an apple and tune into that when you hold it in your hand. Then let's jump out to the peel, the skin, the wrapper of the apple. And that is a layer that is always visible. It's very thin, and it can hide what's really happening underneath. So this outer layer, this kind of skin part of the apple, I call status play. And status play comes from Keith Johnstone's books and ideas about what it is that drives narrative and drives the dramatic play in a scene in theater. So status play is all of us as human beings, although it applies to all species, and the moves we make on the stage called Earth. So how we move with one another, how we interact with one another, and there's only two possibilities. We either play high status moves or low status moves. And that's the motor of interaction. Sometimes you can think of it as posturing. We play up or we play down. I'll come back to that. And then between those layers is the meat of the apple, which you can think of it as nutritious if you want to, but if the apple's been around a little while, it might not be so tasty. So now I want you to think of kind of a more mealy, not all the way rotten, or maybe partly rotten, so don't eat it. An apple that's not so fresh, not so healthy. And in that layer, I know I started you out thinking of a beautiful apple, and now I'm taking you to kind of more of a Snow White zone, right? Looks good, but it might not be good. Inside the apple, between the seeds and the skin, is a thing I'm going to call social rank. And rank is the layer, rank is the layer where all the social assignments live and where all the isms live. Right? So the word rank, I chose it because it connects me to military space and the idea of people having a specific rank. And also because rank also means past its prime, right? That's rank, like oil, ew, not good. So I think of supremacy as living in that layer. So far, so good? By the way, at any time when you feel like you're getting an idea or some concept is coming into clarity, feel free to throw it in the chat. And I saw it happen already before, but throw it in the chat for the benefit of the collective if something gets clear for you. So if anybody feels like you've got a good definition of status play or rank, social rank, or power, throw it in there and it might be helpful to others. For right now, given the size and shape and quality of our meeting today, I just kind of want to stay in the poetics of the apple and all of your associations, from Adam and Eve to Snow White to who picks our apples in Washington, to the apple pie you loved when you were younger, to the possibility iconic dessert of the US. Anywhere you go with it, we can work with that. So anchor it in. The imaginal realm, the metaphoric realm, has way more facets for learning than the linear cake decorating part of our brain, which is very funnily and can only do a little bit at a time. So I'm hoping that we're just kind of going to relax into a bath of multiple associations and connections, and some things will land and some things won't. And if you get really, really interested in more of the left brain side of this model, you can go ahead and pick up my book, Beyond Inclusion, Beyond Empowerment, and read all about it because it's all in there. Okay, so in the core is kind of where we've been hanging out so far today. Where we've been spending our time. We've been in the realm of interconnection, in the realm of transcendent experience, in the realm of synchronicity and even miracle. We've been hanging out in the space of maybe inspiration, hope, steadfastness, stamina, right? All of that stuff lives in this core. I think of things like will, creativity. The lessons, the big life lessons are coded and encoded there. Things like wisdom. So there are many practices that we use to connect to that center, to ground. And I'm just going to go through, I'm going to share a couple of dimensions of this sacred geometry of power and invite you to think about what are your reliable modes for anchoring into and reconnecting to that center, to that core. So it might be that it has to do with the ground and the earth and your feet and the possibility of roots. It may be that that's an important kind of alchemy in your being that brings you back to center, remembering to stay grounded. Maybe there are physical practices that you do, like martial arts, that connect you deep into the ground. The idea of a very heavy ball, at the base, linked to a cord that keeps you really grounded so that no matter what happens, you cannot be knocked out. So that you can move energy and transmute it and transform it, and nothing can harm you. Or you might be connected to that vertical, but in the up direction. And you might be connected to your sternum tilting upwards because there's an eagle cry, or the concept of the tree line at the top, or something about mountains or stars or divinity. Some of you, I'm one of those people, I love to walk into a space and feel the intent of whoever designed it. And what I know from architects is that they do love to craft things that manipulate us into going up, into feeling a tilt upwards. So I grew up in a town with an unbelievable number of churches. So Puebla has way too many churches. I mean, deafening amount of bells. And Cholula, just 20 minutes away, has 365 churches, or maybe 67. But one for every single day. Each has its own saint. I'm planning a trip, and I thought, oh, well, let's stay in Cholula. It's so wonderful. It's a smaller place. And my friend who lives there said, can you handle fireworks every night? If not, you need to not stay here. Fireworks every night, because it's a different saint being celebrated. So, right? Churches, structures, woods, they invite us to remember there's something broader, larger, more cosmic than ourselves. So that may be where you go. In any case, nature takes us both down and up. Some things take us out into the wide possibility of our side field. Those who are with us, how we are accompanied, who we work with, right? Sometimes you meet somebody, and before you even know what they do or what they're about, you have a sense of, you're with me, I'm with you. We are collaborators in some way, and later you find out how it's true. So I encounter that a lot among scientists who have a very special place in their heart for others who are doing research that makes their research possible. Sometimes we think about barn raising, how we bring collectivity into the effort of building something. And of course, for those of us that identify with activism, we're interested in building very particularly and in dismantling on the way to our building. So there's also a destructive energy, a destructive catalytic archetypal energy for some of us, in that our building requires taking some stuff down. Then we have the idea of a line of time, or a facet that connects us to the past and the future. Those who came before us, those who come after us. So I could go on with this, but think about your own power practices. What are the power practices that anchor you the most? And one key one that I think might be true for a lot of us here is we have people that show us the template of what it is to be grounded, connected, informed, alive, awake, resilient, inspired. And those people are our practice. Spending time with them, or carrying them in our heart if they have passed, or carrying them in our mind if we've read them. So the idea of a role model is a practice. So let me ask one of you to bring into this space a role model, an important role model for you, known or not known to you. It can be somebody from your family, or someone you've read about, or someone from your religious tradition. Who's got a role model? And what I'm going to do, just so you know, I'm going to invite you to take that role and I'm going to interview you. This is a psychodramatic practice. Who's willing? Thank you, Sonia. I'm going to, if it's okay with you, I'm going to spotlight you for this exercise. Are you okay being on your own on the bigger screen, or do you want me to come join you? You're okay.
Oh,
Perfect.
either way is fine.
This is better because then people can see you.
Okay.
And so I've spotlighted Sonia. If you're not seeing that, you might want to do it manually yourself. So Sonia, who comes to mind when I say an important role model?
A woman, a friend of mine, a Dharma friend named Sarah.
Great. So I'm going to ask you to shift your body so that you can become Sarah. As much as you can do it. Sit as Sarah might sit. Hold your shoulders the way Sarah might. You might even do some things like your face might relax and then reconstitute in a face closer to Sarah's features. And if you're ready, do you feel like you're there?
I'll try.
Okay, welcome Sarah to our space.
Oh, it's fantastic to be with you. This is so exciting.
Well, Sonia brought you here, and you've clearly been important to her. So I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe your upbringing, Sarah, or something about your life that you'd be willing to share here today.
Well, I was born in South Carolina, and I came from a pretty conservative background, and I've been something of a rabble rouser my entire life, and never really following what everybody else was doing, trying but failing to fit in, and then finding my own path, and feeling quite liberated in that, and having met many really interesting and beautiful people, and various inspiring teachers and relationships, and really being someone who, not so much someone who came to the mic and the stage, but someone who helped other people find their voice.
Okay. And so it wasn't always easy, right, to find your path. You had times of not belonging, not fitting in, not seeing the path. And so what was it? Can you name one or two things that really helped you in the difficult times?
Well, I happen to take a lot of my inspiration from the Dharma. So it's the Buddhist teachings and practice are really what have guided me my whole life, but interpreted in rather creative ways, I would say. And then reading, again, sort of investing myself in the words and the thoughts of others, and kind of curating those, and working with them and cultivating them, and then kind of passing them along to other people as I saw fit, as a way of kind of cultivating seeds, received seeds from other people into other people's gardens. That's really what's been the thing that's carried me through it all.
Beautiful. So as you bring Sonia to mind, what's something you would share with us about her that you particularly can see? Or you know?
Yeah. Well, I think what Sonia and I, the reason why Sonia and I have connected is because we're interested in authentic communication. We're interested in speaking about what's actually true and real in every moment, and also about what it is that we love and that we hate, and that we find infuriating and inspiring. And another thing about Sonia that I feel like I can connect to is the constant kind of unfolding of the miracle of small moments and small things.
Beautiful. Thank you. So, Sonia brought you into this space, which is a conversation about racial healing, about moving beyond inclusion, about working in intersectional ways towards liberation. And I'm wondering what words you would offer, just kind of in closing, to this collective.
Yeah.
So, Sarah, what would you say to us?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked my whole life on issues of racial healing, and really kind of bringing forth the stories of people more than anything else, but kind of in that particular way of being involved in the healing process. And I would say that the most important thing is to remain open at every stage of your life to learning new and more and different, and to never to overestimate what you think you understand about what's going on between people or between groups or on a societal level. It's never to assume that you've captured it all, but just to remain open and to keep the listening ear, especially when it comes to voices that haven't been privileged or given space to be fully expressed.
Wonderful. Thank you for visiting. And if we could get Sonia back. So now shift your body again to come back into a very Sonia, a kind of a classic Sonia mode. And how was it for you to transmit Sarah for a little bit? It's the inner Sarah, obviously. It's the inner Sarah.
I admire her so much, and she's suffering. She suffers so much. She's at a stage of her life where she's just experiencing a tremendous amount of suffering, and so it gives me joy at every moment, in our interactions, but also in this space, to be able to share the gift that she has, especially since she's basically homebound and she can't move and she can't connect with people anymore. So it's a pleasure to be able to bring her in this space.
Yeah, so two things come to mind. She may be homebound, but she's clearly, her soul and her spirit are not, as she is here with us across the entire country or whatever. And also that the seeds planted and interspersed in you have borne fruit, and that you carry that and you honor that. Thank you so much, Sonia. I'm going to remove the spotlight now and return you to the collective. Okay, everybody, take a breath there. We just did a sacred thing, inviting an inner, the template, again, the portrait, the pattern of those who impact us becomes a part of us, right? That we are imprinted by the wisdom of elders and teachers and friends and colleagues and parents and grandparents and ancestors who leave that print in us so that we can live that out. And you can see how credible it is, because you could see the difference, right? You could see Sarah and you could see Sonia, and you could tell that there was a difference, but also there was a congruence there. So this is a practice to simply call up a person of power, someone who has access to those facets or those aspects of the geometry of truth, and anchor that and bring it forward in your practice. You could connect with one of those people in your mind or in some more embodied way right before you go into an environment to work, especially if you're going to be explicitly working with social justice. So let me jump out to the outermost layer. We're going to leave power behind, and never leave it behind, but take our focus to the outermost layer. And this is the layer of distraction. I just want to distract you for a minute so I can take the last couple of moments to anchor you into the rank part. So status play is all the stuff we see, and it has a tendency to confuse the issue. So status play is who did what to whom, and who said what, and whether it was wrong or right, and whether it was correct or incorrect, and whether it bothered me or didn't, and whether it was big enough or not. So all of that play is happening all of the time, right? So when we become focused on an incident, so go ahead and bring to mind an incident that troubled you, that made you not feel good. You're concerned about what happened. Maybe you're concerned about something said or done to you, or something you did or said, or something you witnessed. One layer of that incident is very simply who did what. So just let that layer of the narrative play out in your mind. Who said or did what, or failed to do what? And just let that a little bit noisy layer do its thing. I kind of have a picture of like maybe ants on the apple. And let's drop down. It's kind of a gear shift down to the question of social location. So now take yourself to not who did what, but what are the social locations of the people in the incident, including you, along these lines. What's their age? Are they between the ages, each person, are they between the ages of 18 and 64? Or are they younger than 18, older than 64? And you'll feel the different cadence of that. Does anyone have a disability in that story that you're concerning with yourself with right now? What about religious membership? Is anybody there a member of a religion outside of Christendom? What about ethnicity, racialization? How are the people in that group racialized? Are they European American? Are they people of color? What about their social class? Are they middle or owning class? Or are they working class or poor? What's their sexual orientation? If you know. And if you don't know, why don't you know? Are they straight? Are they not straight? How many of the people on there do you notice might have indigeneity in their background? Were they born in the US? Or are they immigrants or refugees? Are they cisgender male? Or are they cis women? Or trans or non-binary? So I've just ran through 9 elements of Pamela Hayes's acronym addressing: age, disability, developmental disability, religion, ethnicity, social class, sexual orientation, indigenous background, national origin, and gender. You don't need to remember that. It's in the book and also in some articles that we can get to you. But this is a way to consider what's going on in the meat part of the apple, which I promise you has at least some parts that have gone really bad. And that's the dimension of supremacy. So the rank question is not who did what, but how is supremacy operating in that scene? In me, in others, in the in-between space between each of us and each other, in the whole narrative, and then more broadly, in terms of implications for others, organizationally or societally. So they're really 2 different questions. And the first question, the question of who did what or who didn't do what, often distracts because the same action carries different meaning depending on who did it and who they did it to. This is the most challenging thing I'm here to offer you. I'm going to offer it and kind of run here in about 10 minutes. What matters, but it has very different implications depending on who is carrying it out. So it's not about the dimension, the size of an aggression, microaggression, macroaggression, invalidation, insult, or passive things like omissions, invisibilizations, absence of actions, like failing to meet the requirements of a treaty, right? Failing to invite someone. So these can be active, passive, or all the way to omission. All of those actions have very different meaning when you drop down into the rank layer. So the work, if you want to explore it, goes like this. You start by identifying where you get your source of power, what are the practices of power so that you don't lose your way. Then you explore your status styles. Who are you stylistically in different environments? Are you the one who always kind of takes the mic and takes lead? Do you tend to kind of hang back? Do you get a lot done, but you're working behind the scenes? Are you more of a high status player or a low status player? High status players are more dominant. Low status players are more accommodating or more responsive. So that's the skin layer, the surface. And then, if you really want to do the work of social justice, you're going to work your social profile. In what areas of social location do I have privilege? In what areas of social location do I carry marginalization? What is the socialization and conditioning that is differential, that I have experienced and received and have encoded into me, both in my areas of privilege and marginalization? And what is the journey that I am taking on each separate social membership towards being in relationship to, rather than embeddedness in, the society in which I participate? Did you catch that last one? Relationship to rather than embeddedness in. All right, so it looks like I have time to do one semester of human development theory right now. You ready? The egg attaches to the womb. You with me? The egg attaches to the womb. Grows. If it's going to be viable, right? It grows. Eventually, there is a moment where there's an inversion, preparation for a kind of launch. We call it birth. The organism launches with quite a lot of drama from the holding environment, which is the womb, the uterus, and exits. And then it turns and begins a relationship to the thing it once was inside of. Did I do that right in English? Embedded, separating, differentiated relationship. Once born, must attach again. What? First 9 months of life, we attach. Around the 10th month, we start to wiggle inside of the context that is known as the mothering culture. Anyone who mothers you. We wiggle around in there till around 2 years of age, at which point we go, no, I do it my own self. And that's the beginning of relationship with those who cared for us. And we do this for the rest of the life cycle. So, fast forward to this moment. I am pointing you to the fact that you have parts that are completely embedded in the socialization and conditioning that you received, that you were brought up in. And some of those are completely inert. You're just held in them. They've got you. You can't even see them. You don't know what you don't know, right? All of us don't know what we don't know. There are parts, though, that have begun to stir. And there are some where you have experienced a kind of decentering from your socialization. I mean, we heard it from Sarah in Sonia's voice, this separating. I had to do it my own way. I had to find a way to do things. And then finally, there's the possibility of relationship to the culture, to the society. And this is where we start using words like supremacy, because we start to notice it's uneven. When we're embedded, we don't know about unevenness because we're in it. It's the idea of the fish can't see the water. But when we differentiate, we can begin to notice aspects, or at least trust, that there are unevennesses in every area of social membership I just named. That ageism, ableism, religious oppression, racism and racialization-related oppression, classism, heterosexism, homophobia, anti-indigenous oppression, anti-immigrant oppression, and all forms of gender oppression are real. And they are not a function of what happens in the outer layer of somebody doing something. They are a function of the systemic, structural reality we are all living in, and they are operating 100% of the time. Not only when an incident in the outer layer calls our attention to it. So if we want to create environments that are not just inclusive, yes, you may come in, yes, you're invited, but we want to create environments that are truly anti-oppressive, then we want to look at this layer and examine the presence of supremacy in nearly every moment and in every aspect of our work, and kind of get over our allergy to the possibility that something might be wrong even as things are right, and to also overcome the pervasive wish to define oppression as a problem to solve, and instead replace that with a more power-based, in that core idea, orientation that oppression is a set of conditions in the context that we must always attend to in order to counter in an active way. So I know that's just the beginning, but let me open to questions for, I think do we have 5 minutes, or am I making that up? Okay. So let's open up for questions. What's landing with you? Comments are also welcome. What's arisen? Did any of it land? If so, say what it is.
I just love the framing around the it's not just in a moment some problem is happening, but it's actually the structural reality of our lives that we need to attend to. That landed, and I'm really thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, and I think you said it better than I did. So thank you so much for rephrasing. That's why I'm inviting these, because you're going to put it another way and someone's going to go, that's right. Thank you. What else? Questions are welcome as well, or comments.
I think for me, it's that image of the pulling and separating and turning and then facing in relationship, and thinking of that developmentally in terms of individuation with family or with other structures, but then to think about it in terms of structures of supremacy and privilege, and coming into relationship with that and challenging that relationship and re-identifying where I want to be in that relationship. That's very helpful.
Yeah, and that all that is, by the way, just because I didn't say it, is object relations theory. Object relations theory. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Identifying the source of power, whether that's whatever part of personal, organizational, community is so important to look at, that gets overlooked as we go about in our relationships and take things for granted.
Thank you. Yeah, and I want to say this idea of courageous conversations, brave space, difficult talks, we got to go in with resource. Brian, did you have something? No. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
That sense of taking some time to reassess privilege for myself, white, heterosexual, male, and where are the areas that I need to try and walk in someone else's shoes. Mm-hmm. And so that reminder of about 3 years ago, a wonderfully impactful racism, anti-racism, of course, training process of 3 days of intensity was really good at helping us to identify and to line up around the room based upon all these different factors, age and color of skin and ethnicity, etc., and to see it play out right in front of you. And I think it's important to continually come back to that, because I don't have the same experience as others.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I love that you said, it's a 3-day intensive, and the vividness with which it can come, and then it kind of sort of fades unless we continually do this work. Thank you. All right. So oh, thank you, Mary. Bring it out. Open your mic. Mike, we need Mary. We need your mic open. Do you see it? There it is.
Yes. How in intentional and wanting ways can supremacy and privilege become more fluid in a group of people rather than embedded in a static way in some persons and not in others? How does
I'm hearing your question at 2 levels, so I'm going to try to answer it at both.
Yeah.
At one level, what I'm hearing is, can more of us spend more of our time noticing the aspects of intersectionality where we carry privilege, so that work is more ongoing and distributed? So that's one.
Yes.
And then the second level of your question that I heard was, can supremacy itself become humanized? And the answer to that is no. Supremacy remains very mechanic, industrial. It's a non-human thing in a way. It's a meme. It's a mimetic structure. And not one meme, it's a set of memes. But it's a mimetic structure that also struggles and strives to survive. And it does so by repeating and replicating and altering like a virus. And so it's not really a person, and it doesn't have human features. So it won't respond to our love and care. It won't respond to the dialogue and the conversation. It only responds to being witnessed and countered. And all it does at that point is like its claws kind of, withdraw a bit, but it stays the same because it's structural. So even if we create, which we hope to and we do, I think Brian just named one, if we create a space for 3 days where somehow we keep it at bay or we neutralize it a little bit, we really haven't, right? Because it's right there underneath consciousness and right outside the door, and we're going back to our ordinary lives where this is going to be vivid and active. But we've changed and we've developed more of a relationship to it rather than simply being embedded, which means that we would be only carriers and not counterers. So we're working to be counterers rather than carriers. I just coined that this minute. Victoria, thank you for this. So I'm going to close this with a song because I know you got to go. And here are the words. Let's see. And I'm going to play it so that you can hear some harmonies. And if you need to exit, please go ahead and do that. And if you can stick for the song, then please stay for the song. Here we go.
We must become the mentors that we are seeking. Is also dreaming us what it is that we are dreaming. We must become the mentors that we are seeking. He is also dreaming of
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to put this link in the chat so you have it in case you want to use it. And the song I started with is really easy to find on YouTube. So I don't have the link handy, but here is this. Thank you, everyone, we got a lot done, don't you think, in a relatively short time? Thank you for your participation. And thank you, Victoria and Ben, for inviting me.
Thank you.
Final words from you? Yeah.